Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
All right, remember when Donald Trump received the endorsement of former Klan leader David Duke and then lied about not knowing who he was?
I don't know anything about David Duke, okay? I don't know anything about what you're even talking about with white supremacy or white supremacists.
Remember when Donald Trump retweeted a far-right anti-Islamic group and then said this?
You're telling me about these people because I know nothing about these people.
Well, you'll never know what he's saying now about the Proud Boys, a white supremacist group who he told in front of a national audience to stand back and stand by.
I don't know who the Proud Boys are. I mean, you'll have to give me a definition because I really don't know who they are.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Joe. It is Thursday, October 1st. Along with Joe, Willie, and me, we have professor at Princeton University, Eddie Glaude Jr., and U.S. national editor at the Financial Times, Ed Luce.
You know,
to have you all on board.
You know, Mika and Willie, it's so interesting, isn't it, that he's saying the same thing now
there it goes again.
that he said, as we've been talking about for 4 years, as he said before Super Tuesday in 2016, where he denied knowing who David Duke was. I don't even know who David Duke is.
Right.
And, of course, back in 2000, there are quotes of him attacking David Duke and saying he wouldn't be a Reform Party candidate because David Duke was a racist and he didn't want to be in that party. And then he was even sort of slippery about the Klan. I can't really attack this group because I don't know what they're doing. And Mika, here he goes doing the same thing again.
Listen, he gave them a very clear message to stand back and stand by. And you could see him thinking, Willie, in that debate, how do I do this? How do I do this? Because both Chris Wallace and Joe Biden were like, okay, go ahead, denounce, say it, do it. Do it. And he thought, how am I going to do this? And he didn't do it.
He didn't do it. And the semantic game some people are playing, well, he meant to say stand down and he used the wrong word.
Sure.
Or what the president is saying now, I don't even know who the Proud Boys are. Lets him off the hook. Because the question was, will you condemn white supremacists? And rather than saying, of course I will, he said, well, which ones? He wanted to get specific about which ones. And here he was yesterday, the president, when asked about Proud Boys. You will hear echoes of the sound bites Mika just played for you.
Mr. President, President what you meant last night when you said that the Proud Boys would stand back and stand by?
I don't know who the Proud Boys are. I mean, you'll have to give me a definition because I really don't know who they are.
So, Mr. President, did you misspeak when you said stand by? That's my first question.
Just stand by. Look, law enforcement will do their work. They're going to stand down. They have to stand down.
White supremacists, they clearly love you and support you. Do you welcome that?
I want law and order to be a very important part. It's a very important part of my campaign. And when I say that, what I'm talking about is law enforcement the police have to take care. And they should stop defunding the police like they've done in New York. Like they've done in New York. I just told you.
But do you denounce them? Do you denounce
I've always denounced any form Any form of any of that, you have to denounce. But I also, Joe Biden has to say something about Antifa.
So he cannot, Joe, just bring himself to say, when he's first asked about white supremacists, will you denounce them? He gets to it eventually, but first he has to give his speech about law and order and about where Joe Biden has fallen down again and again and again over his entire life, frankly. But in his political life for the last 4 years, this has been his answer. Either I don't really know those people who I just gave a tacit endorsement to, or I'm going to change the subject because I know they support me and I can't risk losing them.
But you know what he didn't even do in that clip, and what he can't do is say, when asked, do you condemn white supremacy? He will never say yes.
Right.
Oh, I'm against all of the violence on all sides.
That.
Do you, and as far as the white boys go, the Proud Boys go, he knows who they are. I mean, the FBI is out once again saying that right-wing extremism, white supremacy is one of the greatest dangers in America right now as far as domestic terrorism goes. But this happens any time and time again. Will you condemn white supremacy? He will never say, yes, I condemn white supremacy. And by the way, this is not a semantics game. This has been going on for 4 years. And whether it's refusing to condemn David Duke at first, refusing to condemn the Klan, then coming back saying something was wrong with my earpiece, yesterday trying to clarify things, but would not clarify it. He was asked several times, do you condemn white supremacy? I condemn all of it. It's always generalized. He always tries to change the subject. He always goes to Antifa or some left-wing groups that he wants to condemn. Yesterday he talked about law enforcement, but will not come out and condemn white supremacist groups.
Yes, Joe, and it seems to me that there's a reason why he won't condemn them, and it's something that we just need to say out loud. Donald Trump will not condemn white supremacists because he is one. And we can make that judgment, not to rush to it. We can look at his policies. We can look at his behavior. It's not just simply David Duke, Joe. It's QAnon. It's the Klan. I mean, every single time he has an opportunity to declare that these people are outside of the democratic process, that they should be condemned in an unqualified way, he dances, he skirts, and it has everything to do with, I believe, right, his alignment with these folks. The Proud Boys are proudly call themselves Western chauvinist. They are pro-white. They don't want to feel guilty about being white. It aligns with Richard Spencer. When you think about what Donald Trump says about anti-racial bias training, when you think about how he deploys ICE in particular sorts of ways, to my mind, Joe, there's an alignment. There's a consistency here. So at the end of the day, Donald Trump will not condemn white supremacists because, in my mind, to me, he is one.
It is Thursday, the 1st of October of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Well, the ramifications of Trump's outrageous behavior at the debates continues to resonate around the world. Yeah, I gotta tell you, the majority of the world pities us because we were looked upon as the beacon on the hill. You know, the one that rotated round and round and round, beckoning those who were, well, disenfranchised and needed a home to come home. Right here in the great United States of America. And Trump has reduced that to, well, a fascist rule in which those refugees are pilloried and made to be evil and criminals. Yeah, he was at his rally last night. in Minnesota, with one of the highest Somali refugee populations in the country, going off about how Biden's going to turn your suburbs into a refugee camp. You know, black Somalis coming to take over your town. Because Ilhan is a Somali refugee. And these ghouls purport to be Christian. They are not one iota of what the Jesus story was meant to convey. So that old adage, love thy neighbor as thyself, they are full of such self-loathing and hate. And it manifests. It manifests. And here we are. Armed vigilantes under the aegis of Trump's rhetoric are going to the polls to intimidate voters. And they're going to call themselves poll watchers. You know, you can't be a poll watcher until you've been assigned. You have to go to the county clerk, to the election officials. You need to put your name in. You have to be representing a party. And you have to be approved. And you certainly can't bring guns. And yet these people have already been doing this. Armed maggots. Intimidating voters at the polls. Oh, well, we're just making sure that the votes are voted correctly. Yeah, we know what they mean by correctly. The times they are changing, and there's a hard rain gonna fall. Mostly, they'll go their way, and I'll go mine, you and me together. Yeah. Oh, I got attacked by some QAnon-addled bot trolls. I don't know if they're people. I mean, even if there are people, are they really? Yeah, the Democrats are pedophiles, and we're drinking the blood of babies. You know, and then they're all anti-Semites, too. George Soros and Hillary. I do know that in the greater dynamic of all this, these rampant calls for violence that Trump echoes across the land. Echoes. A clarion call. Yeah. Do we have any more tidbits of cliches that I can drop in here? All we know is that the clarion call is being heard and it is being acted on. People are already making money off of it, too. Didn't take long. Yeah, not just fundraising, but just, you know, Craven making a money. Stand back, stand by. But as soon as a Democratic voter or a block of Democratic voters say, you know what? Maybe we do need to make sure that our weaponry in our house is well oiled and we're proficient in its use. As soon as anybody from our side mentions that, all hell will break loose and that person will be banned for, you know, promoting violence. As soon as we talk about defending ourselves with our Second Amendment solutions, we will be labeled the violent, hateful left, like we already are, and then they'll have proof. Oh, look, they have guns. They're getting guns against us. Look, we're not getting guns. I've been asked that question before by some right-wing, they could have been Proud Boys for all I know. They were mocking me. Oh, hey, you know, with all this stuff that's going on, are you liberals getting more guns? I told them that, you know what? No, because the 3 I have is enough. And you should have seen the look in their eyes like, you have guns? Well, hell yeah, we live in Oregon, don't we? Jeez. It's just that I don't need to carry one around because I feel a little inadequate down there, if you know what I mean. Mark my word. They already proved it when the Black Panthers showed up on the court steps in Oakland back in the day, and oh, suddenly we had gun control then. Except this time, The gun control will be one side getting control of the guns, meaning we will be losing ours, and they'll be confiscating them and putting them in their armory to use against us. I don't want to get more guns. I want to lessen the amount of guns. And one way to do that is to, try to convince these other people that it's ballots, not bullets. I'm already being laughed at for being a sucker and a loser for believing that the ballots are the way to go in America. And these idiots call themselves Americans. They cannot take our flag away from us. I will not cede the American flag to them. Whenever I see an American flag and a maggot Trump Pence 2020 sign, that is defiling the American flag. It is a violation of the flag code. But I wouldn't expect this Justice Department to do anything about it. Not when you have... What? This is another bit of news that came down the transom. There's some food relief, SNAP benefits that are going to be going. I can't remember the state. I apologize. But it's such a craven ploy to buy votes. The appropriate department, I don't believe it's Commerce, but it just might be Commerce, has insisted, oh no, it's the FDA, has insisted that this food relief, these benefits, have to have a letter that says it's coming from Donald Trump. Buying votes. Crumbling every norm. And you know what I'm told by maggots? Yeah, well, you know what? This is a new game and we're making up the rules. Fuck you. Excuse my French in the morning. But I'm rather peeved. Do not talk to me about law and order. We already have the law and we already have the protocol for the order. We don't need some idiot who had 56 hours of police academy training telling me that they know more about the Constitution. Because they have the gun and they have the law so they can make the orders. Well, we have a story coming up later in the news read about exactly that dynamic. Is it frightening? Maybe. I don't necessarily get frightened, but it does really piss me off, indeed. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Of course, at the top, that was Trump now pretty much denying that he knows the Proud Boys, and he's pretty sure they just deliver the coffee to his coffee boys that he doesn't really know anyway. Doesn't know. That's what he always says, isn't it? Doesn't he? On the rest of the menu, the Little Rock, Arkansas police chief, who just happens to be black, by the way, I need to put that in there, sued the local police union, 2 assistant chiefs, and several officers, accusing them of conspiring to force him out of his job. Trump is set to ignore the deadline required by the 1980 Refugee Resettlement Act, and you would expect that after that Nuremberg rally rant last night. And the Oath Keepers have recruited thousands of police, soldiers, and veterans, and they're coming for you. Not to recruit you. They're coming for you. After the break, we move to the chef's table where a Japanese court found the government and energy company TEPCO negligent for failing to take measures to prevent the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster. And the death of a U.S. Embassy employee in the Ukraine may be a crime or an accident, Ukrainian officials say. They can't make up their mind. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the chat room link, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon page. And please do, if you're able, if you could send us the cost of an espresso-type coffee drink once a month, we are able to stretch those dollars, pay our bills, fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended. And you will be instrumental in allowing us to do that. So there have been a few who have, over all these many years, helped us do exactly that. And we need more, because everybody does. The costs keep going up. We have to buy newish machinery. We got to get the software. The bills, they never stay at the same cost. They always go up. How dare they? Regardless, we continue to pay our bills. We continue to resist and continue fulfilling our civic duty. And thank you, really, all kidding aside, thank you for allowing us to do so. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Thank you, Tom, for taking care of that for us. And so much more as well. I, of course, take care of at Justice Putnam, because that's me. And I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, and get that linked up on social media. The show notes and links are very important, so check them out. Okay? You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. And most importantly, please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc. Etc., etc. Okay, it's Thursday. Man, one more day. And then we have the whole weekend to get tired again. Jeez, remember when it was the exact opposite? The weekend was when we rested? Jeez, wouldn't it be nice to have those days back again? This first offering comes out of the Associated Press by Andrew DeMilo. Little Rock's police chief sued the local police union yesterday, Wednesday, along with 2 assistant chiefs and several officers, accusing them of conspiring to try and force him out of his job. The federal lawsuit by Chief Keith Humphrey is the latest round in an escalating public fight within the department that is centered on his response to the fatal shooting of a black motorist by a white officer last year. And the white officers don't like that the black police chief is being like a Black Lives Matter anarchist jurisdiction. The defendants include Charles Starks, the white officer who Humphrey fired over the shooting at Bradley Blackshire. Starks was later reinstated by a judge, but submitted his resignation in September. The lawsuit accuses the Little Rock Fraternal Order of Police and its executive board of orchestrating a campaign against the chief that included lawsuits accusing him of retaliating against assistant chiefs who testified against him in hearings over Starks' firing. It also accuses the union, Starks, and a local blogger of publishing false stories online about him. This is about the right thing. It's not about Keith Humphrey, the chief said at a news conference at a Little Rock church. You don't treat people this way. In a statement, the Fraternal Order of Police said it would vigorously defend its members against all allegations and stand by the record of selfless community service of the law enforcement officers named in the suit, as well as our organization itself, which has been a fixture in the Little Rock community. Don't do anything bad for us. We're good neighbors. An attorney for several officers in the lawsuit called it an effort by the chief to silence his critics. Really? It's sad, unfortunate, unprecedented that the chief would be suing his own employer and his own officers, said Chris Burks of the lawsuit, which also named a Little Rock Human Resources official as a defendant. Humphrey, who was hired in 2019 by Mayor Frank Scott, is the city's first popularly elected black mayor. Humphrey told reporters that he hadn't talked with the mayor about his lawsuit before its filing. Scott declined to comment directly on the suit, but said in a statement that the city remains focused on strategically addressing crime and ensuring that our officers are building relationships within the communities they serve in the true fashion of a 21st century police department. Humphrey fired Starks over the Blackshire shooting, despite recommendations from the officer's supervisors that he stay on the force. In his resignation letter, Starks accused the chief of making his working conditions intolerable since he was reinstated. Julie Watson and Matthew Lee of the Associated Press bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Trump administration has proposed further slashing the number of refugees the United States accepts to a new record low in the coming year. Do I smell the blood of Stephen Santa Monica Goebbels Miller? Do I? In a notice sent to Congress late last night, Wednesday, just 34 minutes before a statutory deadline to do so, the administration said it intended to admit a maximum of 15,000 refugees in the fiscal year 2021. That's 3,000 fewer than the 18,000 ceiling the administration had set for fiscal year 2020, which expired at midnight last night. Well, apparently they have not missed their deadline, but they're not giving the totals that they were supposed to. Well, the proposal will now be reviewed by Congress, where there are strong objections to the cuts, but lawmakers will be largely powerless to force changes because somehow this guy has more power than is ever given to any president in the history of the United States. How is that? The more than 16.5% reduction was announced shortly after Trump vilified refugees as an unwanted burden at that campaign rally in Duluth, where he assailed his opponent, former Vice President Joe Biden. He claimed Biden wants to flood the state with foreigners. Oh my God, foreigners! When you go into Minnesota, ask how many people have foreign Norwegian names. Just ask them. Biden will turn Minnesota into a refugee camp, he said, that overwhelming public resources, overcrowding schools and inundating hospitals. You know that. I know that. It's already there. It's a disgrace what they've done to your state. And all of his racist supporters said, yeah, it's so terrible. Look at this. Trump froze refugee admissions in March amid the coronavirus pandemic, citing a need to protect American jobs as fallout from the coronavirus crashed the economy because, hey, when you've effed up everything, the best thing to do is to scapegoat a refugee. Secretary of State Pompeo said the administration is committed to the country's history of leading the world and providing a safe place for refugees, as long as they're white. We continue to be the single greatest contributor to the relief of humanitarian crisis all around the world, and we will continue to do so. Pompeo told reporters in Rome on the sidelines of a conference on religious freedom, and he was not allowed to see the Pope because the Pope said, "These Nazis are not coming into the Vatican. Get them out of here." Advocates say the government's actions do not show what Pompeo is saying that they're doing. Since taking office, Trump has slashed the number of refugees allowed into the country more than 80%. 80%. Reflecting his broader efforts to drastically reduce both legal and illegal immigration because this guy is a dyed-in-the-wool racist, and that Stephen Santa Monica Goebbels Miller has him stringed like a puppet. Sarah Toast of Raw Story brings us this final offering here on the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. The Atlantic investigation has unearthed a chilling far-right militant group comprised of thousands of veteran soldiers and police. The Atlantic just discovered them. You know, they've been out here in Oregon and all over the place. They're called Oath Keeper Sheriffs. They carry around an abridged constitution in their breast pocket because they're supposed to be constitutional sheriffs, and they know more about the Constitution than constitutional experts who have taught the Constitution for decades. Indeed. What the group intends to do on Election Day still remains to be seen. You know, it's not as if they hadn't taken over a wildlife refuge up in the mountains in Oregon. It's not like they ever were involved in that. No. But there is a growing concern for the safety of American voters as we head toward, arguably, the most contentious election cycle in our Constitution's history. Well, that's saying something, isn't it? At the start of the subject's examination, journalist Mike Giglio read a collection of diary entries by Oath Keepers founder Stuart Rhodes, wherein he traced back to the launch of the ultra-conservative group in early 2009 because we were getting a black president. We got to stand up to this outrage. Giglio, I like that, would subsequently report on his findings between 2009 and 2015, just prior to the start of Trump's campaign. I use them as a starting point for conversations with dozens of current and former members, he wrote. The dominant mood was foreboding. I found people far along in deliberations about the prospect of civil conflict, bracing for it, and afflicted by the sense that they were being pushed toward it by forces outside their control. Oh, my God. Pedophile Democrats eating babies and drinking their blood. Oh, these forces are forcing us to do this. Many said they didn't want to fight, but feared they'd have no choice. Oh, my God, if there's another black president, especially a black one. Giglio uncovered that a civil war was brewing, and it went much deeper than the Oath Keepers. At the heart of the conflict were guns. When Giglio asked Rhodes and other people on the militant right to name concerns beyond gun rights, they mentioned how history is taught in schools, or how the Green New Deal would threaten land use, agriculture, single-use family homes. They stressed that America is a republic, not a democracy. Liberals, Rhodes told Giglio, want to see a narrow majority trample on our rights. The only way to do that is to disarm us first. Oh, my God. Yeah, 56 hours in a police academy, and they're experts on the Constitution. Giglio recalled that Rhodes relentlessly demonized Black Lives Matter activists as Marxists, a foreign enemy, and said that although the Oath Keepers had participated alongside the Proud Boys during events, they were not effing white nationalists. Yeah, okay, but why are you providing security for white nationalists? He told Giglio to investigate militant groups on the left, such as the John Brown Gun Club, and seemed obsessed with Antifa, which he said the Oath Keepers had faced down while providing security at right-wing rallies. Membership in the group was often fleeting. Some people had signed up on a whim and forgotten about it, Giglio wrote. The Oath Keepers did not have 25,000 soldiers at the ready, but the files showed that Rhodes had tapped into a deep current of anxiety, one that could cause a surprisingly large contingent of people with real police and military experience to consider armed political violence. He was like a fisherman who sinks a beacon into a sea at night, drawing his catch toward the light. Why is it? Just answer me this. Why is it that no matter where you go, anywhere in the world, at any time in history, the police are always drawn to the most authoritarian, fascistic behavior that there is, drawn to it like fish to a beacon sunk in the ocean at night. Why? All right, let's get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Emily Schwing.
Given that hundreds of thousands of dinosaur bones have been dug up, is there any evidence that dinosaurs got cancer?
David Evans, Senior Curator of Paleontology at the Royal Museum of Ontario in Toronto.
There had been a few studies that had kind of suggested, based on just like gross anatomy, that dinosaurs might have gotten cancer. But there was nothing compelling from a medical standpoint. And from that point on, we decided to go on a hunt for rare dinosaur diseases, in particular cancer.
So in 2017, Evans and colleagues went digging through a collection of dinosaur bones at the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology in Alberta, a hotbed of dinosaur fossils.
And out of the hundreds of dinosaur bones that we looked at, we found one that was a candidate for bone cancer.
The bone specimen Evans and his colleagues found comes from a dinosaur that roamed Western Canada between 70 and 75 million years ago. The creature is called a Centrosaurus.
Centrosaurus is a horned dinosaur. It's about the size of a rhinoceros, and it's a close cousin of the famous Triceratops. So it looked very similar. It would have had a parrot-like beak at the end of its large skull, had a neck shield similar to Triceratops, and walked around on 4 feet and eat plants.
Its apparent cancer is a particularly aggressive type.
And this would have made it more vulnerable to the top predators of the time, which were cousins of T-Rex. But we actually don't think that it's the cancer that killed this animal, even though if it were allowed to run its course, it certainly would have been fatal.
The tumorous bone was discovered among thousands of other bones from the same species. All these animals appeared to have died in a coastal flood.
And this flood looks like it killed a herd of these horned dinosaurs, Centrosaurus, which are known for living in large social groups. And we suspect, although we can't prove, that the cancer could get to such an advanced state because this animal was able to benefit from the safety and numbers of being in a herd. Whereas if it was out on its own with this devastating disease, it certainly would have had a good chance of being picked off before the cancer progressed this far.
The studies in the journal Lancet Oncology. Evans says the research introduces a new way to study paleopathology in the fossil record.
This discovery definitely takes dinosaurs, which we often think of as almost sort of mythical, powerful creatures. And I think it shows that they were real animals in a way that's really unique and sombering, that they got diseases similar to the ones that humans get today. And they would have suffered greatly from these diseases. And so it brings them to life in a really unusual way.
Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Emily Schwing.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. And you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage. Because you are our biggest donor. Netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
President Trump has refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power. Now what?
I'm Tom Hartman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
Listen to Trump's Orwellian logic. He repeats that he obviously will win the election. The only way he could lose is if the election is rigged. He would abide by the results of a fair election, but the only election that would be fair is one that he wins. Trump's later modification of his position is in some ways even more chilling. He asserted with certainty that the election will be decided by the Supreme Court, thereby promising that if he is not pronounced the winner, he'll sue, and that he'll win his lawsuit. Trump also made clear that one big reason to push his Supreme Court nominee to Senate confirmation is so that he can feel confident that the court, at least 5-4, will reinstall him as president when his challenge to the election results ends up before the 9 justices. In other words, the election is not so much about the more than 150 million popular votes and the divvying up of the 538 electoral college votes, but rather about 9 votes, the 9 Supreme Court justices' votes. Of course, the popular vote and the reported electoral college vote actually really do matter. The bigger Trump's loss, if he loses, the more implausible his challenge will appear to the judges and justices who will be called upon to rule on his lawsuit to decide who will be the president as of January 20th, 2021.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because democracy and advocacy begin with you, and freedom can't defend itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1851. That was the day that William Henry, a black cooper or barrel maker who went by the name of Jerry, was arrested in Syracuse, New York. He was first told that he was being arrested for theft. But then he learned that federal marshals had arrested him for violating the Fugitive Slave Act passed the year before. Jerry had escaped slavery in Missouri. The Anti-Slavery Liberty Party was holding its convention in a nearby church. When word came about Jerry's arrest, a crowd rushed to release him. Once released, he was quickly recaptured and returned to custody. But then a large crowd, numbering more than 2,000, gathered to free Jerry from the office where he was being held. According to research done by the Syracuse University Library, the first person into the office was J.M. Clapp, an iron worker likely chosen for his brawn. The crowd was able to free Jerry and hide him until he could escape into Canada. Clapp also had to flee to Canada to avoid arrest along with 8 others. 19 people were indicted for participating in the rescue. Only one person was ever convicted, and he died before he could appeal. In turn, the abolitionists won an indictment against the marshal who had arrested Jerry. They charged him with kidnapping. Although the marshal was acquitted, it gave the abolitionists a chance to publicly challenge the constitutionality of the Fugitive Slave Act. Each year until 1858, a Jerry Rescue celebration commemorated the event. Abolitionists referred to the, quote, Jerry level as a standard for justice. In 2001, a monument to the rescue was dedicated in Clinton Square in downtown Syracuse. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Congress avoided a government shutdown as the Senate passed a funding bill late Wednesday, Donald Trump signing it early Thursday. The bill keeps the government funded through December 11th, avoiding a partial government shutdown. Even though it became law after the midnight deadline, no government operations were expected to be disrupted. But things aren't moving quite as swiftly when it comes to another coronavirus relief package. Although Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin are negotiating again, they failed to reach a compromise on Wednesday. House Democrats postponed a vote on their $2.2 trillion proposal to allow more time for negotiations. Republicans want to spend less, but vulnerable lawmakers from both parties are pushing for a deal before Election Day. Please? Have you recovered yet from the presidential debacle that aired Tuesday night? Well, the Commission on Presidential Debates said that the acrimonious and messy meeting between Trump and Biden, quote, made clear that additional structure should be added to the format of the remaining debates to ensure a more orderly discussion of the issues. With 2 more debates coming, the commission said it will be carefully considering changes, promising to announce them shortly. Speaking from opposite world, Trump campaign spokesman Tim Murdaugh said the only reason organizers were calling for changes was that, quote, their guy got pummeled last night. Well, Donald Trump often complains that he doesn't get the credit he's due. So researchers at Cornell University are. They analyzed 38 million articles about the pandemic in English language media around the world and found that mentions of Donald Trump made up nearly 38% of the overall misinformation conversation. That makes the president the largest single source of falsehoods about the pandemic. The study's lead author, Sarah Ivenga, told the New York Times that the work proves Trump's loose lips have, quote, real-world dire health implications. And make no mistake about it, the Trump campaign is doing everything possible to keep you from voting. This time, a federal judge dismissed the Trump campaign effort to prevent Montana from letting counties issue mail ballots, pointing to the fact that widespread voter fraud is a, quote, fiction. Facebook also announced that it will not accept any ads that spread doubt about voting methods or seek to delegitimize the election results. We'll see. Former FBI Director James Comey testified Wednesday before a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing where he defended his role in the early investigation of Russian election meddling and contacts between Russians and members of Trump's 2016 campaign.
Know that a nation that does not have America's best interest at heart wants to reelect Donald Trump. Let that sink in. Let it guide how you think about the way we ought to conduct ourselves going forward.
Senate Republicans say the FBI inquiry, which was later taken over by special counsel Robert Mueller, was intended to undermine Trump. Democrats argue that Republican lawmakers are using their investigation to boost his re-election chances while failing to address Moscow's attempts to influence this year's election. A Justice Department watchdog reported in December that there was evidence of FBI errors, but not bias. Comey defended the FBI's decision to open the investigation, citing former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort's association with a man identified by U.S. security officials as a Russian agent. In a related story, Trump's puppet, Director of National Intelligence, the heinous John Ratcliffe, on Wednesday, just hours before the first debate, declassified a Russian intelligence assessment alleging that Hillary Clinton approved a campaign to stir up a scandal against Donald Trump by tying him to Putin and the Russians' hacking of the DNC. He released that even though he admits in the disclosure that, quote, the intelligence community doesn't know the accuracy of this allegation. So he declassified and released a report that he admits could be false or exaggerated? Got it. Congresswoman Katie Porter grilled big pharma executives in a House Oversight Committee hearing on Wednesday. She eviscerated former Celgene CEO Mark Ellis with her now infamous whiteboard.
Mr. Ellis, do you know how much you personally received in bonuses over the last 2 years just because Celgene raised the price of this one drug, Revlimid?
I receive very generous compensation, but I don't know the exact number that you're referring to.
In fact, you personally received $500,000 personally just by tripling the price of Revlimid. So to recap here, the drug didn't get any better. The cancer patients didn't get any better. You just got better at making money. You just refined your skills at price gouging. And to be clear, the taxpayers spent $3.3 billion on Revlimid.
A judge on Wednesday granted Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron's request to delay the release of grand jury recordings in the Breonna Taylor case. The deadline had been set for noon on Wednesday, but the judge pushed it back to midday Friday. A spokesman for Cameron saying it was, quote, to give us proper time to redact specific personal information of witnesses from the 20 hours of audio recordings. It was just last week that a grand jury indicted one of the fired Louisville detectives, Brett Hankinson, on charges of wanton endangerment for firing shots into a neighboring apartment But the officers who raided Taylor's apartment and killed her were not charged in that crime. In the days after 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse was charged with fatally shooting 2 protesters in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the Trump administration reportedly instructed federal law enforcement officials to be sympathetic toward the shooter when talking publicly about the case. NBC News reporting that it obtained internal Department of Homeland Security talking points that prepared officials for questions from the media. The document reportedly told officials to note that Rittenhouse took his rifle to the scene of the rioting to help defend small business owners, and that he was, quote, chased and attacked by rioters before allegedly shooting 3 of them. That's not true. The Department of Homeland Security refused to comment on the leak. The talking points echo Trump's comments on Rittenhouse, who noted the teen was trying to get away from protesters before shots were fired. Again, not true. And finally, a judge Wednesday approved an $800 million settlement for victims of the Las Vegas mass shooting. It was 3 years ago, October 1st, 2017, that a man opened fire from his hotel room at the Mandalay Bay Hotel in Las Vegas, aiming at a country music festival happening on the Strip below. 58 people were killed and nearly 700 more wounded in what is considered the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com, and please click on that donate button.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 51 degrees Fahrenheit. Considered to be much warmer today than yesterday, around 95. We were around 90. Plentiful sunshine, though we have hazy conditions and bad air today because of smoke from nearby wildfires. Winds are light and variable. Clear skies tonight, ostensibly. Lows in the upper 50s. Winds light and variable, and mainly sunny tomorrow, hopefully, without the smoke haze. Highs around 90 to 92. Winds light and variable. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon have now spiked to 1,190, and another death has now been notched, and we stand at 6. Ragweed pollen is rated high right outside the mothership, the window of the mothership in Rogue River proper, and the air quality index for the region is unhealthy at 153 parts per million. And the daytime UV index is moderate, though it has gone down 1 notch to 4. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.16 inches. Visibility is at 3 miles. And relative humidity is at 82%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 60 and partly cloudy. Paris is 60 with a rain shower and a flood warning. Rome is 72 and partly cloudy with high winds. Kyiv is 63 and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 65 and fair. Hong Kong is 78 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 65 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 60 degrees and fair. San Francisco, California is 70 degrees, partly cloudy with an air advisory because of bad smoke from wildfires. And New York is 68 degrees Fahrenheit and fair. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. And these people positively live around the world. Mary Yamaguchi of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Japanese court yesterday, Wednesday, found the government and the operator of the wrecked Fukushima nuclear power plant negligent for failing to take measures to prevent the 2011 disaster, ordering them to pay 1 billion yen, which is $9.5 million. That's all, in damages to thousands of residents for their lost livelihoods. The Sendai High Court found fault with the government in the meltdown of 3 reactors, saying the regulatory agency at the time could have predicted a major tsunami way before the disaster, according to lawyers representing more than 3,600 plaintiffs. The ruling was a major victory for the plaintiffs and could set a precedent for similar lawsuits across the country, according to the plaintiff's head lawyer, Izutaro Managi.
Je te donne, c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Anonymous worker bees, part of the Reuters staff, brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The death of a U.S. Embassy employee in Kyiv may have been a crime or an accident. Interior Ministry Artem Shavenko said on Twitter yesterday, Wednesday. Police have opened an investigation after a woman was found with a head injury in a park next to the railroad tracks. She died of her injuries in the hospital. And what was that head injury? Yeah, a gunshot wound to the head. Might have been an accident. I guess we'll find out later now, won't we? Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, and you do know that Netroots Radio will broadcast on. And we'll meet up tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Don't we deserve it? So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy for another tea.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie d'un novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.